Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 117. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us here for this Wednesday. Dave, good to be back with you.
Yeah, I'm part of the Walking Dead clan, trying to get rid of, been super sick the last couple days, so going to try to struggle through this for the folks, and we got a lot to talk about, I think, as far as one, Ben Roethlisberger goes, finally met the media on, what was that, Tuesday there, so a lot to cover there.
Yeah, for sure. Hope you feel better, Dave. I know it's been a little tough the last couple of days, but we'll try to keep this maybe a little bit shorter show today. And there isn't a whole lot to talk about beyond Ben, no other breaking news or anything else to worry about. You know, one thing, just as a quick kind of tangent to start things off here, already even last week during OTAs, we're talking about Ben's velocity. We're talking about, how good Najee Harris looks in drills. And I get it. It's May. It's early June. We're all kind of jonesing for some football, and nobody nerds out over small stuff more than I do. But I'm not sure how it really, media and analysts can try to make conclusions about the state of Ben's arm and things like that when he's throwing on air to Najee Harris,
Yeah, it's a bit rich, right? He's zipping it, zipping it down the field there, and I think you see this quite a bit over the years. It's media, it's local media versus national media, and it's almost like they all come running to the defense of Ben, for the most part. Look, Pro Football Focus has their thoughts on Ben and the deep ball. I kind of the jab that they made the other day about Ben throwing shorter passes to Najee Harris and saying Ben's working on his deep ball. I get what they were trying to do. I mean, they're just trying to make jokes, but B, they could have done they could have went about that a better way, because quite technically, Alex, with Ben, especially last season, it wasn't the amount of deep balls with him. He was like, I think there was only 3 other quarterbacks in the league that threw the football down the field more than 20 yards, an attempt more than Ben Roethlisberger did. The problem was Ben's completion percentage, and that's been something that's kind of dogged him, not only last year, obviously there wasn't much of a 2019 to analyze there, but even going back, I think, into 2018 and 2017 as well. You remember the conversation we had, in 2018 about the Wi-Fi and how the first part of that season, the deep ball connections weren't great for Ben Roethlisberger, and the second half, it got a little, it got noticeably better, but it almost had to from that aspect there. And now fast forward to Pro Football Focus making their jokes about Ben. They'd been better to make a comment about working on his average depth of target. That might be too nerdy. That
a little less zing to it.
Yeah. Us nerds would have got it, but it would have been more accurate. Or his average time of release. You use more technical, analytical, advanced statistic terms. Maybe it becomes just a tad bit funny there, but it does almost seem like there's kind of this protection. This annual protection of Ben Roethlisberger from, look, do I think it's, I get on the major media when they go after the whole fat, and Ben conditioning thing. I mean, really, I think Ben's really looked good the last couple off seasons when it's come to his conditioning there. But I'm with you, brother. I think it is a bit rich. I mean, I know we're all starved for football, but right. Let's kind of lay off the velocity and the Ben zinging it down the field there when you're doing it on air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Those are Jerry Seinfeld's principles of comedy, right? That comes in threes, and if you can make average depth of target funny, man, you're just going to kill the crowd. So those are the rules.
The old Ovaltine stuff, right?
No idea what that is.
Okay. Yeah. Were you a big Seinfeld fan or no?
The show, I'd watch it casually. Never was a diehard. I just was trying to think of famous comedians. But what's the Ovaltine?
There's a couple of segments in there where I think that's mentioned and all like that. But
all right, gotcha. I get some references to Seinfeld, but that's probably a little too much of a deep cut for me. But anyway,
when that show first came out, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it's one of those shows that if you watch it, and I suppose it's maybe a lot like The Office. I don't watch I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail for this, but I never watched a lot of The Office, period, and even since kind of it's gone off the air, I've tried to watch. I mean, I get some of the comedic value and all in there, and the deadpanning and all like that, but I just it never resonated with me. And Seinfeld, I think. It's some highbrow comedy in there, obviously, but it took a while for me to get. But now, I mean, it's one of those shows. I think late at night, if it comes on, you almost can't watch the episode.
Right. Anyway, back to Ben here. He had a lengthy, about 15, 18-minute media session yesterday on Tuesday and talked about every topic. I thought it was a really good interview overall. A lot of good questions, a lot of good answers, but I thought it was pretty open and honest. And I kind of want to start with just, chronologically how things began for him this year, at least in the offseason for Pittsburgh. We knew that the Steelers, flat out came out and admitted that he could not play at his $41 million cap charge. They had to rework the contract in some form or fashion, and they did. It was a restructure, and Ben took a $5 million pay cut, and he said at least that it was his idea. He approached the team about taking a pay cut in order to free up space and hopefully kind of prove to the front office and to the rest of the team that I'm serious about trying to put together the best roster possible. Now, that pay cut didn't save a lot of money for this year, about $1 million, but it seemed to be more of the gesture than anything, and that was something that surprised me coming out of the Ben restructure process.
Yeah, a little bit rich there, I think. What was he? As soon as the season ended, he's standing at the front door with the boom, or with the boom box over his head, and I'm here to give back money and play again. I mean, I understand, but wasn't it Rooney that came out and said, look, we're going to have to do some things and look at his contract and I guess we could get into some semantics of chicken and the egg or pay cut versus returning or what have you there. It'd be interesting to know how that all really went down. I'm not so sure it was, it might have been, hey, Ben, we need to work something out. He says, well, all right, well, what do we need to do? I'll take a pay cut. That could have been the conversation there. But I don't think it all started with, hey, I'm here to take a pay cut,
Right. No, I think that scenario that you laid out might be the truth, where they said, Ben, we have to do something here, and Ben then offered to take some sort of pay cut.
Right, and I mean, we've covered this several times already, and it sounds more. Do I sound as bad as do I sound as bad as I feel, or do I feel as bad as I sound?
You can't sound worse than me. I perpetually am the most nasally person you'll ever listen to. So.
All right. Well, if I sound as bad as I feel this morning, then I apologize here. But I think we kind of covered this before, and the fact of the matter is, okay, yeah, $5 million is $5 million. It's $5 million less. Obviously you're not going to come to me and tell me, Dave, I'm going to take $5 million less this year, right? or are you?
Can I exist at my current cap hit?
The fact of the matter here is, yes, he did take a $5 million pay cut, and a pay cut is a pay cut regardless of the amount of it is. But in all practical usage of it, it was more of a cash savings than a cap savings. As we said, because of the way that they did his contract and all, it saved $1 million in cap space. I mean, is that a lot? I mean, I guess in their situations, it's enough,
Right.
But
It turns out they kind of needed that in retrospect.
yeah, they did overall, and I mean, technically, I guess in fact they did, but when you look at their current cap situation as it stands, in real time right now, if you want to look at stuff ahead and costs that this team's going to have, they have. And what we think is going to happen with guys like Tuitt and Chris Boswell, they have really, effectively $1.6 million in effective cap space usage. Now that's not real time on paper, because obviously they have right around $7 million right now in real time. But if we're looking ahead at expected cost and then on top of it, expected restructures and all like that, they have about 1.6 in effective cap space. Now, obviously, if Ben didn't, would they have even been able to get because there are lines in the sand that you have to get past in each scenario here. Getting cap compliance, obviously, one of those. So, did that help in that aspect of it? The answer is yes. Did it help in the aspect of technically, I guess, being able to re-sign a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster? I guess technically, yes, it all helps. But the fact of the matter is, if you just want to look at the facts of the matter, is it just saved $1 million in cap space. So I think too much time is being focused on, Ben wanting to take a pay cut, and that's the reason he's back kind of thing.
Right. No, I hear you on that, and definitely not surprised that Ben kind of was volunteering that information. Speaking of Ben and his arm, you talked about earlier about the deep ball accuracy and his arm just overall. He gave the standard answer of his arm feeling great right now, but he did say that he wants to obviously wait to get into the season, see how he feels. You can't really judge how your arm's going to feel come November when you're sitting here on June 2nd. But he did have some interesting comments. He talked about, he said, quote, but I think anybody that has a big surgery, it almost takes like that year, that first year back. It's still you're back, but are you really back and feeling great? So I think there's some good points there about him having kind of a full off season, to have a normal off season, to be able to rest his arm more, and just have another season removed from that elbow surgery. And I think that there's going to be a benefit to that, and that could theoretically, at least, in itself, improve his deep ball accuracy and his arm strength overall.
Is this where we play the $6 million man kind of, that kind of bionics music and all like that? Look, I don't know what side you want to get on, maybe on the devil's advocate side of this, but once again, as we just mentioned at the top of the show, and this is not, Ben's not the same. There have been a lot of dynamics that have changed over the years when it comes to Ben Roethlisberger and the deep ball. And to be quite honest with you, at some point, I think during the rest of this offseason, I think we need to go back to maybe the last couple years where Ben did have a good deep ball percentage. And by, you always have to kind of clarify what you mean by a deep ball, well, really with any statistic, because there's not universal stats, so to speak, when it comes to this kind of stuff. But when it comes to, let's say, deep ball passing, when do you remember the last time as Ben being great with the deep ball?
I think we've gone over some of these numbers before. In terms of him being great, it's been, I think, a little while. But in terms of him just being better than poor, I would probably say 2016, I'm guessing.
What do you consider a good completion percentage or an acceptable completion percentage on passes of more than 20 or more yards down the field? 40?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I'd have to look at the list and find the average and all that. It's hard for me to do that off the top of my head. But yeah, 35, 40%.
The last time he was, let's see here. He was 38.4 in 2016. That might be his better. He was 37.8 in 2015. In 2014, he was 39.2. In 2013, not great there, 31.6. 2012, we're getting back when you were like still on the bottle here. 23.4. You get where I'm going here?
Sure. Yeah. Now, would you consider any of those years to be great or just better?
I would say better. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is, when has Roethlisberger been great with deep ball connectivity?
No, I hear you, but he doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be not abysmal the way it was really the last 2 years that he's played fully.
All right, 39.6 in 2010, back when they ran a lot of. I mean, he only attempted 53 deep passes that season there.
And what was it last year, for context? His completion percentage last year on deep balls?
Let's see. It was
his better years around 37%. What is it? Where was it last year?
It was 30.3.
Wow. Yeah, so obviously you can really feel the big drop there.
All right. So what? Okay. What? I mean, where would we like? I mean, to think that he's going to go out and he's going to attempt 75 deep passes in 2020 and connect on 40% of them is a bit rich, right? I mean, it'd be great if he did, but
yeah, just get me to 35%.
All right. That's still it's not great, but
37.
Where is the problem with him in this?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have a good answer to that. I don't know if he even has necessarily a good answer to that, other than the arm strength just isn't great. I don't know if it's a timing thing. Obviously, there's some amount of luck, and how well does the receiver play it, how well does the DB play it, those kind of factors. When you talk about 50-50 ball, is kind of the cliche of it. That's sometimes what they are. So again, I wish I had a good answer for you on the why. I can just kind of tell you the what.
39.6 last year for Tom Brady, a guy who's not normally known for. I mean, I don't think a guy that normally takes a lot of shots down the field, but no risk it, no biscuit offense last year sure ended up kind of playing more in Tom's favor, right? 39
points. You throw to Godwin and Evans too.
Yeah, it sure does. Matt Ryan, 39.7% completion percentage. Aaron Rodgers, 41.6. Those are the three quarterbacks that attempted more deep passes than Ben Roethlisberger last year. I don't know. Maybe this is the bar. 35.6. Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think 35 would be the minimum. If he can get 37, 38, that would be, I think, a really good number for Ben to achieve.
I wonder, and once again, this might be worth looking back at, going, let's say, back to, 2016, I guess, might be far enough there. I wonder what percentage of those deep pass completions that Roethlisberger had were extended to play type situations. In other words, now make no mistake about it. I mean, when Ben seemingly in our minds, I think, was better at the deep ball, wasn't it times when he had guys like Martavis Bryant and Mike Wallace just, running slap past people?
Sure. Yeah. I agree.
And, the occasional, Antonio Brown doing the same. I mean, not to say. I mean, look, make no mistake about it. Antonio Brown produced a lot of explosive plays for the Steelers, but how many of those explosive plays came with him catching the football more than 20 yards down the field, and B, of those that he did catch the football more than 20 yards down the field, how many of them were kind of like in full stride? You know what I'm saying? In other words, part of the route. I mean, because quite honestly, you didn't see a lot of that. A lot of Antonio Brown's explosive plays, I think, came with him either catching the football shorter than 20 yards down the field, or B, if he did catch the football more than 20 yards down the field, it was Ben being Ben. The old extended the play aspect of it. So I guess this is a long way of saying I don't how much does Roethlisberger's arm strength even matter right now at this point?
Well, I think it still matters.
I mean, when it comes to the deep pass specifically.
Yeah. Well, if they're going to get this thing better, I mean, they're going to have to complete some more stuff just downfield, especially with the way they're still taking those vertical shots. Unless you just kind of scrap that from the playbook entirely, we'll see what Matt Canada has in store. But I just think,
but that's a good point. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I'm trying to go back to reiterate here is this team needs to get this offense has to have the ability to have deep ball connectivity with it, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think.
And whether you want to lower that bar down from 20 yards to the NFL version of a deep pass, which is 16 yards or more, even that would be huge because explosive plays. We've said this time and time again. Explosive plays in the NFL matter big time, and the aspect last couple of seasons of throw short, catch short, run long, you're just not going to get enough of that on a game by game basis. So you have to make up for that with the ability to strike deep down the field in certain situations, and especially if teams are daring you to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. But I think just the point that Ben's trying to make is saying that obviously there were deep ball issues last year, but he's believing they could be better this year because he'll have a normal offseason, he'll be able to rest his arm. He's not rehabbing his arm and throwing a bunch of footballs in the spring and summer, and just being another year removed, hopefully just improves the state of your arm and your feel and your confidence and all that stuff. So, I mean, who knows if he's right? I'm not even sure if he's saying that his deep ball in his arm will be better this year, but I think that's his hope.
Can it be worse?
It's hard to be worse than where it was last year.
Realistically, I mean, you're talking about 30% connectivity last year, and the last full season that he had was 2018, where it was 34.5. 2017 was 20. I guess it can be worse. 27.3 in 2017 on 88. Man, what the hell happened that year? But 27.
Well, that was the Wi-Fi year, right? Or was that 2018? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Maybe that was the Wi-Fi year, but 27.3. Was that Juju's rookie season?
2017, yeah, it was.
Okay. Maybe that was the Wi-Fi season that we talk about, but because he was awful. Remember how awful he was in that first half of that season there?
Right.
I mean, you look at where he sits, these last several years here, you wonder, can it get worse? I suppose it can, but it needs to be better than 30% on throws more than 20 yards down the field. That's for sure.
Before we get back into Ben's comments, quick sidebar here, not Steelers related, but I think you might find this interesting, Dave. According to Tom Pelissero, the Packers, they tendered tight end Robert Tonyan, $3.38 million tender, but they did a voidable year deal with it, tacked on 4 voidable years on that RFA tender to save money. I think it's kind of interesting maneuver. I didn't even know was possible.
Say it again. I didn't see that report.
So, yeah, this just came in a minute ago. Robert Tonyan was a restricted free agent. They placed a tender on him this year, but for salary cap purposes, they're treating that tender as a bonus, and they tacked on 4 voidable years on that restricted free agency 1-year tender to create cap space.
All right. So what they did basically is they just restructured it. Then they already had him on the books on the tender amount. So what they did is they said, okay, we will because I don't believe restricted tenders are guaranteed anyway. So what they did is they guaranteed it essentially by turning all but whatever all they could except for the what the minimum base salary would be in his years into a signing bonus, and then added on the voidable years to stretch that out. So that's how they went about that. But they're trying to clear cap space any way they can. Any ideas why or what?
I don't know, unless we're really gonna try to bring in Julio or a trade or something like that. I have no idea. But cleared $1.9 million in cap space. Anyway, just thought that was interesting for.
It's not often you see that on the heels of, say, a restricted tender like that.
Yeah, so it's a brave new world. And that's why I don't think it's voidable stuff. I mean, you'll see it less in the future, but I think it's still going to exist for teams up against the cap because it's kicking the can down the road. It's dead money, but it's a good way to free up money in a hurry without having to cut somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, back to Ben here. Trying to find some more interesting things that he talked about.
What did you think about him saying, when talking about, how down the stretch happened? How much do you read into him saying using the phrase worn down?
I think he's accurate. I think he's just being honest about it. I mean, and I don't think it was a shocking statement he made yesterday. It was pretty clear that not only he, but the entire team felt tired. And you can blame that on a variety of factors, just the mental, physical toll of the pandemic, that craziness of the season, obviously week 4 bye week. That wasn't even a bye week. I'm sure that played some sort of factor. We know that Ben was having knee problems last year. I know he denied it, but it was clear he's got some knee issues, both, to that year, and then just kind of the arthritic knees that he talked about, and that's not going to go away this year either. So yeah, I think that he's honest, and I think it was a pretty obvious statement to make.
Right, and I mean, look, the last thing that they want Ben having to do on a game in, game out basis is drop back 40 or more times in a game.
Mm-hmm.
There's more chances of getting hit and wearing out that arm. So I mean. Did it feel like he was worn down late in the season?
A little bit, yeah, I would say so. And here's the other thing too. You asked about why was the deep ball an issue? I was on a podcast earlier this week, and someone asked me about Ben's arm, and I said honestly, I think the bigger concern from an injury standpoint last year for him were the knees more than the arm, because his knees were a big issue. And you talk about throwing the deep ball, a lot of that is power drive, from the ground up. And if your knees aren't there and you can't really throw it with your hips and your legs, then all arm is going to be tough to get away with unless you have like a cannon for an arm like a Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers. And obviously Ben not in that camp ever, and definitely not now. So I think the bigger story when it comes to his health and the state of injuries and things is probably more of his knees. And is that a big reason why that deep ball just looks so lifeless, because he just doesn't have that power to generate from the ground up. Right. And I know it's hard to you see some of these clips coming out of OTAs and all like that, people say, oh, look at him throw. He's always kind of had kind of a float to it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never been a Favre or Rodgers or, where it's real tight on the line or anything like that.
Right, and I think that's one thing that you can already kind of look at, some of these, and it's, we're talking about 18 clips, kind of hard to draw conclusions from that. But, I don't see I don't see the bionics kicking in just yet. Let's just put it to you that way.
Do you think the knees though are a bigger issue than what people are? Because everyone's focused on the arm. All everyone ever talks about is Ben's arm and his elbow. But I think the knees is probably maybe the bigger issue.
I mean, there's a whole throwing motion, right? I mean, torque and hips and leg drive, and he's not 28 anymore,
Right.
So father time's undefeated, and I imagine it's taking its toll on him as many passes as he's thrown over the years. So yeah, I think it's a lot to expect him to be able to drive a football at this point, more than 10, 12 yards down the field. So
yeah.
Could the knees possibly be a reason for that? Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing with that is that doesn't get better.
Right.
You don't have a good year with your knees, and just when you're wear and tear and you're getting sacked and getting hit and stuff. I mean, then your knees are going to feel like crap probably by week 15. So the arm may feel good, and that may be fine, and I think actually it probably will be. But will the knees be in a good place? Just because he does have arthritis and probably a bunch of scar tissue and whatever injury he was dealing with last year, I think that really was a big factor in his problems.
Right.
Dave, Ben also talked about Matt Canada's offense and actually had some really interesting comments about it. One thing he did say was, the use of motion, that's been increased. I think that's a pretty obvious thing. But I thought the most interesting quote he had about the offense in general was that he said, quote, "I think this offense is going to be completely different. You'll see nothing that you've ever seen in the past. We're going to just try and throw literally everything at everybody." So I don't know exactly what that means. Obviously, that's a pretty vague way to phrase it, but he's saying big changes coming to the Matt Canada-led offense. I mean,
obviously he's having a little bit of fun there at first, right? Saying that, we're going to be totally unpredictable. Nothing's carrying over. I forget exactly how he kind of worded the front end of that question. Do you Let me see
I
if we have it here. Let's see.
Maybe you can provide better context and whether that was more of a jokey comment or if that was more of a serious
Yeah,
comment.
he the first half of it was a jokey kind of sarcasm. He was asked what is going to be different about the offense this year and how can you guys be less predictable. His answer was, I think this offense is going to be completely different. You will see nothing that you have ever seen in the past, and we are going to try and throw literally everything at everybody, so that way we won't be predictable. That was the jokey part of it, and then he gets into it's just new. In all seriousness, there's a lot of new for someone who has had a very similar offense for a very long time. Verbiage wise, it's taking some extra studying. It is a fun new challenge. Guys are getting it, and hopefully it translates into winning football. So has Ben's verbiage and base structure of offense been the same for several years now? I mean, even going back pre Randy Fichtner, the answer is yes. I think they probably should have taken the opportunity when Fichtner took over for Todd Haley to maybe adjust some of the verbiage and all. I think it's probably not hard for maybe opposing defenses to pick up on some things over the years. Possibly when it comes to stuff like that. Now, is it easier for the old dog to learn a new trick or for the new dogs to just learn a trick?
Right. Well, I think it's going to be Ben having to learn it because Canada's the coach and it's the offense that he wants to run. Obviously, there's going to be some level of compromise, finding out what works best and most effective with the personnel that you have. What I thought was interesting, though, and I know that Matt Canada was obviously an in-house hire, a promotion because he was the quarterbacks coach last year, but he was still such a new face to this team before being elevated to OC, and that's such a – I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing, but a departure from where this team was at. Ken Whisenhunt was with the team for 3 seasons before becoming OC. Bruce Arians with the team for 3 seasons before becoming OC. Randy Fichtner was with the team since Tomlin came in 2007 before being named OC for 2018. So Canada's the first guy to really be a quick turnaround from a positional coach or whatever to being an offensive coordinator. And so I think that's what Ben's comments are, is that it's not like Canada's been here for 4 or 5 years, or they're still working on their relationship and stuff like that. And so I think that's going to be one of those newness things that Ben has to deal with.
And look, and this goes back to once Canada was added last year as a quarterbacks coach, and us wondering about how much, how visible his fingerprints will be on the offense. It ended up just adding a clunkability factor to the offense. Right, the motions and stuff like that. It didn't, the timing of some of these motions, especially early in the year. Anyway, it all never really seemed to mesh real well. And what'd you think about that study that Tom did?
Yeah, it was excellent.
Tom Mead.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Check that out. Just type in motion on Steelers Depot, and you can probably find it pretty quickly. But I thought one of the more interesting numbers was the motion rate on the scripted first 15 plays, I believe, was 60%, and everything after that, the post-scripted plays were 32%. So you see a major drop-off, almost in half of motion, scripted versus unscripted. So you could imagine that Canada being part of the game plan, the meeting room, and all that, they're putting in some motion, and then once it's kind of more on Fichtner and some of Ben running the show, the motion rate really dips and falls away. I thought that was a really interesting stat from Tom's study.
And I think if you go back and look at the pregame wrap-ups that I did, especially last year during the early part of the season, that was the feel as well, too. A lot of motion early in the game, pre-snap motion early in the game, and then get away from it as – now, obviously, sometimes they were behind in games and but
just because you're behind in game doesn't mean you can't use motion. It can be effective.
Right, but I think they hid behind the fact that some game situations, but the whole thing just had a level of clunkability to it anyway. It didn't feel as natural. Now it all, you have a year of that underneath your belt now, and then having obviously a whole off season now again with this, and with Canada running the show. I think if there's one takeaway, and it's not rocket surgery here, is the fact that there's going to be a lot of motion in this offense this year. Now we thought there was going to be a higher level of it last year. I think you're really going to see a lot more of it this year. And one of the aspects that I keep going back to is, can we see this offense not only use that more and throughout games, but can they also find a way to throw out of certain situations on it? And obviously you're not looking for them to throw 60% of the time out of pre-snap motion situations, but they need to up that level and find a way to use that and mix that in as part of the deception factor there. So that's one aspect. Now, are we going to see Ben on the move, a la who was the LSU quarterback a couple years ago that was there when, the Pitt quarterback that they put on the move a couple years ago when Canada was there?
I'm drawing
a blank.
Peterman.
Maybe that was it. I'm drawing a blank there. But anyway, are we going to see Ben Roethlisberger on the move quite a bit, Alex? No.
Yeah.
But might we see Ben under center more?
Well, I think maybe a little bit more, but I still, he made the comment of, and he made sure to make this very clear, we'll be under center. I never said I didn't like playing under center. Mm-hmm. Ben did. I press X to doubt. I don't know about that one, and I still think we'll see some pistol, but it'll be interesting. I don't know what my expectation of center rate is going to be. I think probably more, because it's hard to be less than where they were last season, mm-hmm. but how much more, I guess, is the big question.
What do you, based on everything that Ben has said, just yesterday alone, what do you kind of envision that this offense looking like? Obviously more motion. I think you're gonna see a lot more. I think you're gonna see it collapse down a little bit more.
What do you mean by collapse?
I think you're gonna see a couple more, more two tight end situations. I think you're gonna see Derek White on the field a little bit more than you did. I think there's, look, some of the Ben's better years, go back to like 2005 and 2008, and a little bit more. The better they did running the football, success rate wise, especially early in the games, it sure seemed to open things up a little bit more for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can do that, then I think every offensive coordinator to be all for that. Yeah, I don't know if I have strong hard and fast expectations. I think we'll see pistol. I think that number is going to go up because I think that's the best compromise between the shotgun heavy based approach they're in right now and the desire to be under center, even if it's not going to work best for Ben. I think we'll see a lot more pre-snap motion. I think we'll see a lot more, even more, lateral plays, horizontal plays. I think we'll see more inside zone, definitely more outside zone for sure. I think RPO usage will still stay high, and probably just a better use of constraint plays, being able to use one play to set up another. I think motion can be a big part of that. So those are some of the baseline things I'm looking at. But, I think Canada's first year as an OC in the NFL, and, just the newness with what to expect from him. I don't know if I have necessarily concrete expectations.
How much will reinvention are you expecting? Ben talks about this is new, but, how much?
He seemed to talk about new in terms of the verbiage of it, just the calls of things being different, and so that might be the newest part. Stuff on the inside that we're not going to get to see. Maybe we won't hear the Blue 80 anymore, or Ben pre-snap, because the names are different. But we'll see some newness for sure, and I think again that'll be largely based off of the motion and some of the lateral plays that they're going to run, stuff in the flat and things like that. But I don't know if it's going to be completely different. One thing I've learned over the last 3 or 4 years, especially with the McVays and Shanahans and stuff like that, the more that you can run out of looking the same, the better, and
in the Steelers case, when looking the same, it's usually 11 personnel and then dropping back and throwing out a shotgun, right? Whereas you look at some of these other offenses, there's some level of, man, I wonder if they're going to run here off of this motion, or if they're going to, you know what I'm saying? Some of your better offensive coordinators just recently, or some of your better offenses, I think overall have the ability to give same looks, same motions, but yet run so many different things off of that. I think that's the biggest challenge, and I think that's where they can potentially help Ben the most here this season, especially with Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of goes back to the constraint plays that I was referencing, where things look the same, but you add one variation to it. The most successful teams when it comes to play action is everything looks the same. Is it outside zone, or is it a boot to the left, a boot to the right, whatever side you want to run it to? And defenses, if it looks the exact same, the steps are the same, the track of the running back is the same. Defenses will have no clues, no indicators to know whether or not it's a run or a pass, and that's when you're at your most effectiveness as an offense, and specifically with play action. And so, hopefully, if you can do similar type things where things look the same, definitely pre-snap with the motion, even some of the stuff right after the snap, but it can be a different play, just a different variation, a small tweak here or there that can make a big difference. And I think that's the mark of a good OC, is somebody that can use one play to set up another or make things look almost identical, and so the defense has as little time as possible to react to what you're actually running.
All right, I think my voice is warming up a little bit here. Najee Harris. Ben's thoughts on Najee Harris. I'll let you talk a little bit. Try to save myself down the stretch here.
Yeah, we'll get you out of the bullpen here, and the Pirates probably use you.
Oh Lord, what? I mean, they find new ways to entertain, don't they? What did you think about that interference call at the plate
yesterday?
Yeah,
I didn't start watching until like the 8th inning, so I didn't see what happened.
Oh my God, go Google that one.
Doesn't sound good though. But Ben with some funny quips about Najee Harris and some positive comments there. He said, "Quote: He's a really hard worker. He's in here extra long. I think the other day the running backs coach told him, 'Hey Najee, I have to go home now.' That just shows that he's still in there watching film, and he's constantly asking questions. Said he's been a sponge and been a quick study. Overall, said he doesn't seem lost and his head's not spinning when it comes to the NFL. So." All positive comments. There, nothing new about Najee Harris. We knew the reputation he had as a really hard worker, somebody that had a strong commitment to football, and clearly somebody trying to absorb and learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's a good thing, because he's going to be counted on in a big way in 2021.
Absolutely. Look, you have that draft capital. We've said it time and time again. If you draft a running back in the first round, he better be able to do it all and stay on the field. And I mean, anything short of turning water into wine, I mean, he better be able to do it. And looks like they're kind of heading that direction with him. And 300 touches at a minimum. I mean, they're going to get their money's worth out of this kid, and it sounds like he's working hard. Sounds like he's smart. I mean, right out of the chute, this guy's going to touch the football a ton. Yeah,
for sure. And he has no other commitments right now. Even Eddie Faulkner, he's got, I think, a family and kids and stuff he's got to go home to. Najee Harris is just, he's by himself almost in some sense. So he's got all the time in the world to learn this playbook and get in the film room, and it seems like that's what he's doing right now.
Ben feels like, Ben stays around just for the sheer fact, I think, year in, especially this year, and he talked about what it's like to finally get top of the draft, help, and especially, first 4 picks were offensive players, and, he made sure to make I don't want to say a snide little remark about
what he said?
He said something like, it's been a while since we, let's see,
since they've drafted.
It's been a while since we've gotten so many weapons early on offense. I mean, Chase Claypool was a 2nd-round pick, right? Juju was a 2nd-round pick. Help me out here.
Deontay, Washington are 3rd-round picks.
Right. I mean, he should have just came out and said it. It's been a while since we've had 3 to 4 in a row.
Or a first-round pick, because obviously that streak.
Right. I get what he's getting at. It's so easy to go back through and kind of pick on things that he said here. But quite honestly, I think he likes being the field general here when some of these young guys are coming in.
Yeah,
every year.
Yeah, I think he knows his leadership role in this team, especially in a year with so much turnover, so much upheaval on the offensive line, the loss of Marquise Pouncey. So I think he recognizes the position that he's in, and probably just relishing these moments too, because he knows whether or not this is his last year or not. Whether or not he knows that now, he knows there are not too many OTAs and mini camps left for him, and so I think he's just trying to relish the moment.
They sure tried to get him to say whether or not he considered playing one more, at least another year past year. He didn't take the bait. He's old, wise veteran. When he wouldn't take the bait when it comes to those kind of things there. Mm-hmm. But within that, I mean, is there anything yet? I mean, where is your mindset when it comes to Ben Roethlisberger right now? Is it really just a wait and see kind of thing? Are you leaning one way more than the other of him maybe playing at least another year past 2021? I mean, obviously he's not going to, he, like I say, he didn't take the bait on any of this, but have you been swayed in any way, either way?
No, I'm where I'm at. Since he finally, restructured his contract, that I think it's much more likely than not this will be his last year. Not saying that it is 100% going to be his last year. I'm not going to be foolish enough to make such a guarantee, but I think the odds, both contractually and just where he's at in his career, probably says that this is likely to be his final season.
All right. He got into being asked about his plurals, about winning Super Bowls, a year ago, that kind of thing. What else do we need to hit on him here?
The last thing was him on Dwayne Haskins, and some real high praise for Dwayne Haskins, talking about he was talking to quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan, said that Haskins' release and throwing motion mechanics are, quote, some of the prettiest I've ever seen, and I told him that. I wish I had that. I joked he could throw it through a car wash and it wouldn't get wet. He's learning. It's obviously a new system for him. And Haskins saw those comments and said that Ben was one of his favorite quarterbacks growing up, which is a reminder of how old Ben is, I'm sure. But Haskins, we know the arm talent is there. You've done studies into that deep ball, and while that's been really poor, the arm is there. The problem is everything else isn't there.
Alex, obviously that comment about Haskins means that Haskins is his favorite understudy, favorite backup on the roster right now, right?
Somewhere Landry Jones is weeping.
I mean, you get what I'm getting at. Are you
being serious with that? Or are you being?
I'm being. I mean, come on. This is obvious that he likes Dwayne Haskins a lot more than Joshua Dobbs and Mason Rudolph. How would you? This is the important part of the podcast here, all right? Where we dissect these quotes and all. How would you rank how Ben likes the backup quarterbacks on the roster?
It's a good question. I think there's a swimsuit model competition coming up with those guys, and the key to wins Ben's heart. In other words, don't read too much into this, right? I think he likes all those guys, and Dobbs is, I'm sure, helped out Ben a lot with some of the stuff he sees on the sidelines that's been documented. But he's just saying Haskins has a great arm, and Haskins does have a really great arm. It's just everything else that needs a lot of work.
But who is his favorite?
like children, can't pick one.
Now look, I will drill this one down for you here. What has been one of the main comments I have made about Dwayne Haskins since he was one of the biggest positives I've had to say about Haskins since he was signed by the Steelers?
Just the arm strength.
He can sling it, right?
Yeah.
He can sling it. Now, Ben saying that he can throw the football through a car wash without it getting wet, I don't think it's too much hyperbole here. The problem is, and this is the other aspect, this is the but part of it there. What's he going to hit when he throws it through the, does he know where it's going?
It's on the other side of the car wash.
Right. It's never been about, I don't think.
Been a dumpster on the other side of the car wash.
Right. It's never been about the arm strength with or the throwing motion or anything about that. The mechanics, I don't think, at least not with me, when it comes to Haskins. It's the old, he can throw it 101 miles an hour. Just does he have control of that fastball? That's been the biggest aspect, that and his ability to read defenses and at the NFL level. I mean, the kid can sling it. I mean, he can throw it. You want to talk about deep pass numbers, Alex? Have you looked at Haskins' deep pass completion percentage since he's been in the NFL? I mean,
yeah, we talked about it whenever he got signed, and you can have the numbers. They're abysmal. They're worse than Ben's.
I mean, they are worse than Ben. So now, are we? Is the fan base going to come rushing to his defense and say, "Yeah, but look at the talent"? I mean, that he had in Washington. Look at are we going to blame it on the coaching staff in Washington? Are we going to blame it on, are we going to blame it on whatever we can blame it on, just to be fanboyish here? The fact of the matter is, and because somebody asked us, I pulled this up yesterday. Haskins, in his limited NFL play, is 9 of 47 on throws of 20 yards or more down the field since entering the NFL. That's 19.1%, Alex. 19.1. Now, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He had 3 drops in there. All right, so
12 of 41.
So 12 of 47. What is that percentage?
12 of 47 is 25.5.
That's still lower than one Ben Roethlisberger. All right.
I imagine it's still about the worst in football.
It probably is over X amount of throws. Setting some sort of minimum base. He had to have this amount of attempts, which let's say the minimum amount of attempts was, let's say, 45 or 40. It has to be down there at the bottom, right?
Yeah, if not at the very bottom.
Right. So why is that? I mean, and is that yet another reason why Haskins was on the street, and why it took maybe just a little bit, for somebody to take a chance, that and him not being the most grown up of people,
And he had deep threats in Washington. Scary Terry, one of the top deep threats in football already. So it's not like he didn't have vertical weapons to throw to.
Right. So that if you want to talk about Ben's deep ball, you better be willing to talk about Haskins' deep ball.
Yeah, Haskins has the big arm, but a big arm alone has never made a successful quarterback. Jamarcus Russell had a huge arm.
Jeff George.
Jeff George. I just pulled up his page. Yeah, Jeff George. I just look at his numbers. Terrible numbers overall, especially in his career. Big arm, never materialized. So is he going to be? I'll change sports on you and go to baseball. For all you major league fans out there, is he good Rick Vaughn? Is he by the end of the movie Rick Vaughn, or is he early movie Rick Vaughn, where he's walking everybody and hitting everybody? So
right.
What version of Haskins are you going to get? Can you refine the talent he does have? We'll find out, I guess.
Just going back into this, and setting this all back up. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not surprising to hear Ben talk about that release and throwing motion and the ability to throw that thing through a car wash and not get the football wet. I get it. No, I don't think anybody really is going to argue with that. It's just, what you said, what's on the other side of that car wash, that's where the big questions around some of the big questions are concerning Haskins is accuracy, and then not only that, the ability to pick up and move forward with NFL offenses and reading NFL defenses.
And even when you have that arm and that velocity, and 9 times out of 10, you want to use it, and that's fine. There's got to be some level of touch too. Not everything can be your heater 100%
right.
of the time, and that's an issue. I remember there was a quarterback in Steelers camp preseason. 15 years ago, Shane Boyd, and he had a big arm, but I mean, he threw like a 3-yard flat one time at 150 miles an hour, and dang, you're knocked over the fullback or whoever caught the pass. So it's got to be touch and accuracy and placement, and obviously all those things can be just as important, usually more important than just pure velocity and arm strength.
Yeah, and I got an email the other day, man. Every time you talk about Dwayne Haskins, you're down on him. Well, I mean, I'm trying to keep it real when it comes. Look, nobody wants a flyer on a former first-round draft pick, especially at the quarterback position with the pedigree involved. Nobody wants that to work out more than I do. I mean, that's a gift. But how many times do you see gifts like that where people, where a first round draft pick, so many words kind of bust out, and by bust I mean bust in a negative term. In other words, doesn't even see his rookie contract out with the team that drafted him. How many times do you see those guys come back around and actually,
Yeah.
Tommy Maddox? Is this the next Tommy Maddox? I mean, I don't know, but I mean,
can't ask and sell insurance.
Yeah,
insurance selling skills.
But see where I'm coming from. We have to look at we can't just look at it just because he plays for our favorite team. We have to look at it objectively and the things that he needs to work on. And quite honestly, barring injury, I mean, he's at best he's going to be the number 3 this year, right?
Right. So in-season reps, once the year begins, hopefully you don't see Haskins on the field. I don't mean that in a negative way. It just means that Ben stayed healthy and things hopefully went well. And even if Ben got hurt, then Rudolph came in and did okay. So, yeah, that's why this summer is going to be so important to him, because it'll be his best opportunity for playing time.
All right, I guess the other aspect to look at here real quick with what Ben said, we already talked about deep ball and his comments on that and offense and all like that. Talking about why he decided to show up for OTAs. And, I mean, Ben normally shows up anyway. Now, maybe he's not there for the whole kit and caboodle part of it, right? But I think if you drill down kind of, he says, I'm here, I live here, I might as well be here, aspect of it, which he's right. I mean, if you're there, you might as well be there. Got younger guys. I thought the biggest takeaway there was kind of his comments on the center position, though. I think if you want to boil this down to maybe why Ben will potentially have 100% attendance, which isn't 100% attendance for Ben at OTAs, kind of a rarity overall.
Yeah, I think he usually misses a little bit of time, but I don't track it that well, to be honest.
I mean, I bet if we went back and looked, there's going to be several seasons where he wasn't 100% in attendance for OTAs. In fact, sure. I wonder when would be the last time that we found a situation where Ben was 100% for OTAs?
I could not tell you. Probably been a little while.
All right, so within that, us having incomplete data on that side, if there were a reason that Ben wound up having 100% or near 100% attendance this year, I think it would be because of the center position.
Yeah, I think that. I think also just maybe if he has some sort of inkling that this could be his final year, he kind of wants to make the most of it. And just a young group, and Matt Canada being the new OC, probably a lot of good reasons to absorb as much as possible. He talked about, the weirdness of seeing a 53 out there, but it not being Marquise Pouncey. He said, quote, "I joke that it's not quite set in yet that he's not here," of course referring to Pouncey. It almost just feels like he's just not here at practice right now. It will set in. It's definitely weird to see a 53 in front of me. It's going to be a tough thing to be out there and not have him, not just because of his football presence, but because of his friendship and what he meant to all of us, especially me. So, yeah, I mean, obviously we know the relationship and the friendship that Ben and Pouncey had and still have, and that's, I'm sure no one took his retirement harder than number 7.
All right, is there anything else that Ben said that we can get our pom-poms out and do the perfect cheer?
I did like the you talk about Ben Snark and Ben Snide about, I forget what the comment was, but he's just like, I did have a massive elbow reconstruction surgery, but that's no excuse. Just very, very much a Ben quote.
Yeah, I think he has a unique way of delivering information sometimes, right? There is that level of snarkiness, but I think within some of that there is some bits of truth when it comes. He was asked, what was the reason for not throwing the deep ball as well this past season? He says, I had total reconstruction on my elbow. That might have something to do with it, but no excuses.
Yeah.
My arm, and then he goes into, the Ford Coke, Escort was running good today, until we blew it in. No, but he goes into saying, that his arm feels great now. I'd like to wait to answer that question as we get more into the season, see how it feels. Right now, it feels really good. My arm is healed. Obviously, I played; it was healthy, but I think then he goes back to giving a little bit of an excuse in there, He says, but I think anybody that has big surgery, it almost takes like that first year back. You are back, but are you really back and feeling great? That's why I want to reserve my answer to that question till we get into this season a little bit to let you know how my arm feels compared to last year. Now, he did say he was asked about off-season preparation, and look, we're talking about a guy that normally doesn't pick up the football for several weeks during the off season and during a normal off season, and then obviously last year with his rehab and all like that, he had to throw a lot more. All right, so maybe when you get into the latter portion, what did that fatigue, did just the whole wear and tear of what he had to go through, just the whole mental, every aspect of what he had to go through to get himself back by week one, end up taking a toll on how old was he last year? 38?
Yeah, I bet it did. I'm sure 2020 was as exhausting of a year as any for him for many reasons. Most of them obvious, his injury coming off of that, the rehab, the pandemic, the difficulty of the season, the bye week issue, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think that, again, there's a little bit of the snark there, but on the back half of that comment, I think there's a lot of truth there as well.
Right, and that's why I said I think if you learn how to read Ben over the years, there's snark followed by truth by a little bit of snark, in there. I believe it. And you mix in his comments about worn down, later in the season. Maybe if you start putting all these sound, I bet you can make a sound bite, clip this together and make it sound exactly what he means, by just taking several sound bites of what he said yesterday, putting them together in a certain order. I bet you can come up with making it not sound like it was clipped together, I guess, and delivering what maybe his true thoughts are. And I think the fact of the matter is, I bet what he did, I can only imagine what he went through to get himself back on the field last year, and I bet it did take a toll on him as the season wore down. So now the question becomes, it's fair for him to say, let's wait until we get into this season and see how I feel and all. But I do really think, it is the first 4 or 5 games of 2021 going to be an accurate assessment of what Ben is.
Yeah, to a point, but I think maybe the point you're getting is maybe the last 4 games will be the better assessment of where Ben and this team is than the first 4 games.
Yeah, look, once again, you can't have him drop back and throw 40 or 50 times a game. I think that's just silly, Now, is there going to be a game or two where this team's behind and game situations dictate that, they have to throw most of the fourth quarter? I think there's probably going to be those games. It's hard to imagine there not being those kind of games when you kind of look ahead at this year's schedule. But, I don't think we can get it. How many times did he throw the football last year? 600 or something?
602, I believe.
What's where is the worry line?
I don't know if you can have a defined number on it. I think it just partially depends on how much it's coming in one game and how much is he getting hit. And so I can't say 600 you're bad, 598 you're fine. I think you just feel things out during the season.
But definitely around week 12 or so is when we start really paying, hopefully the team's still in the race and all like that, where we start wondering, how's he going to look down the stretch? And down the stretch they come. But, there's reason to be worried, I think, when he hits that part of the season, right?
Yeah, like I said, I think that's the bigger test, not the first 4 games, but the latter half of the season, especially given the opponents. It's going to be the last 4 games, or I forget who the fourth to last is, but it's like Kansas City, Cleveland, Baltimore. So you got 3 marquee 5-star matchups, and you better not be fading, because if you're fading, you're not winning any of those games.
All right, what else you got for me?
I think that was just about it from Ben. In terms of other news, Bill Cowher has his book out, Heart and Steel, released yesterday. I actually ordered a copy of it, so I'll get to read that, maybe get to do some extra comments and quotes from that. But Cowher, I think in an interview with The Athletic, said he does not really blame Bill Belichick for Spygate, or at least isn't using that as an excuse of why the Steelers lost to the Patriots in the early 2000s.
All right. I don't know who's going to be on the Zoom calls for the Steelers after the practice today, but probably going to get a couple of those guys today, and we should have plenty to write about and then talk about on the Friday podcast. Let's hit a couple of emails and get out of here. Let's see. Mark writes in, Dave and Alex, how thankful we are to have the quality of content you provide during all the draft season. Thank you for that. For me, the highlight of the show was contributors joining you and Alex to discuss potential draft picks. You mentioned having various guys on to discuss guys they wrote up, or just their thoughts and results of the Steelers draft. Have you given up on that? No, not yet. It's just been one thing kind of after the other. Since the draft, I went out of town. I've been sick. Those kind of things there, Mark. So we have not given up on that. I don't know. Maybe we'll do that on Friday, Alex. Even on a singular round table discussion like you had before the draft would be great. I can't get enough talk about the process and results, and would love to hear some of their observations. Again, thank you for your dedication, bringing us the best Pittsburgh Steelers content on the web. Hope your health is doing well today. Not right now. This is really kind of the sickest I've been in I was telling my wife, I said, man, I can't believe how sick I am right now. But she says I work too hard, so maybe that's part of it. But Alex, why don't we try to put something together for Friday? And get some of the guys on and drill down a little bit further, I guess, down into these draft picks from their point of views and impact on rookie season. So I'm gonna put it on you to put that together for Friday, hopefully.
Okay, sounds good.
Mark, we appreciate the email there. Let's see if we got one more. Here. No, let's see if that's from 5 days ago. Okay, no, we got all the real pertinent ones that don't use bad language in it out of the way.
Right,
so in the meantime, you and I will be back on Friday, and we're going to aim to we'll see what the guys' schedules are and try to have more, maybe over a couple of them on and have some sort of a round table situation where I talk less and maybe that'll make for a better show. Maybe I'll save my voice as well, too. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button for $25. For one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site as well, too. I apologize for my voice today. I've just been sick lately trying to get through this, and hope to make it to Friday here. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.